Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we are going to continue with a series on literary techniques. This is part 3. I have already uploaded part 1 and part 2. In part 1, we talked about imagery. In part 2, we talked about juxtaposition. And in today's lesson, we're going to talk about oxymorons. Oxymorons. An oxymoron is a figure of speech that pairs two opposing words. It can be a phrase or a sentence. Now, remember that literary techniques are also called stylistic devices. Okay? And one of the most important literary techniques is an oxymoron. You obviously need to know the different types of literary techniques for maybe your commentary writing, your text analysis, maybe you're analyzing poetry in school. Maybe you're a literature student even at the university. An oxymoron is a figure of speech that pairs two opposing words together. So two words that are opposite in meanings are placed together. They are paired together. Words, okay? It can be within a phrase or within a sentence. Let us look at some examples. Example 1. My room is an organized mess. My room is an organized mess. Now, in that sentence, we have the words organized and mess paired together. The two words have completely opposite meanings, and yet they are paired together. Now, the use of that oxymoron is very significant. Remember, it is not enough to just identify an oxymoron in a poem or in a text. It's not enough to do that. You have to go right ahead and explain the effect of using that oxymoron within the context of the text that you're analyzing in class, or maybe in an exam, or maybe you're using that to write your commentary. So if someone describes their room as being an organized mess, what does it actually mean? The effect that is created is that the room is chaotic. It creates a mental picture, it creates an image of a room that is full of chaos. It is a room where you can hardly find what you're looking for. However, when the person describes their room as being an organized mess, it means that yes, it's chaotic, but at the same time, it's organized, which means that he or she can find everything she's looking for in that messy or chaotic room. So in other words, it is messy, it is chaotic, but at the same time, it is organized because the person can actually find everything that they're looking for. So there is some kind of organization in that mess. Okay? Let us move on to the next example. And this is an example, or rather examples, from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Oh, heavy lightness. Oh, loving hate, says Romeo. Okay? Oh, heavy lightness. Oh, loving hate. Now, when you look at the first example, you have two words that are opposite in meaning, and yet they are paired together. And that is heavy and light. Now, usually something that's heavy, you don't expect it to be light. Something is either heavy or light. But Romeo speaks of, oh, heavy lightness. And then in the next sentence, we have, oh, loving hate. Oh, loving hate. Now, loving and hate are two opposing words that are paired together in a phrase. Oh, loving hate. Now, what is the effect that is achieved through the use of these oxymorons? What is the effect? What is the effect that is achieved through the use of these two oxymorons by Romeo? Now, if you're familiar with Romeo and Juliet, Romeo uses these oxymorons to achieve a very specific effect. They serve to highlight the discord that Romeo experiences between his strong passion for Juliet and the logic which tells him he cannot love her. So in other words, this description of heavy lightness and loving hate, it is a reflection of Romeo's inner turmoil, inner conflict. Because on one hand, he has very strong feelings for Juliet and he really wants to love her. But at the same time, he realizes that he cannot love her. Okay? So this contradiction in his feelings reflects or it projects his inner turmoil. It projects or relays his inner turmoil or inner conflict. He feels heaviness and lightness at the same time. He feels love and hate at the same time. A very good reflection of his discord, his conflicted emotions. Okay? Now, let us move on to the next oxymoron, example 3. My sister and I had a friendly fight over lipstick. That is just a random example. My sister and I had a friendly fight over lipstick. So we could actually use oxymorons for creative writing. We could use oxymorons in our day-to-day speech. Like for example, example 1, my room is an organized mess. That is an oxymoron that you can use in your creative writing. Maybe you're writing a text. Or example 3, my sister and I had a friendly fight over lipstick. Now, in that example, you can see the use of oxymoron in the words friendly and fight. These two words are contradictory. They contradict each other. They are two words that have an opposite meaning, but they are paired together. Now, what is the effect of doing that? Because it's not enough just to identify oxymoron. You need to explain the effect. You need to explain the meaning of that particular oxymoron within the context of the text. My sister and I had a friendly fight over lipstick. The fight was friendly, so there is friendliness at the same time there is a fight. Now, what do you think that means? It means that the disagreement between your sister and yourself over lipstick, it was not the sort of agreement, it was not the sort of fight that broke you up, okay? It was not the kind of fight that got out of control. It was not a violent fight, okay? It was an amicable fight. Yes, you had a disagreement about it, but it was not violent. It was not eruptive. It did not have long-term effects, okay? It was short-lived. It was an amicable fight, okay? Now, let us move on to example 4. It is considered a false truth that a broken mirror means bad luck. It is considered a false truth that a broken mirror means bad luck. Now, in that example, we have the words false and truth. Those two words are opposite in meaning, and yet they are paired together. And that is why we can speak of the use of an oxymoron. So an oxymoron has been employed in that sentence because of the use of two words that are opposite in meaning that have been paired together. If something is false, you don't expect it to be true, because false is the opposite of true. So, what impression, what effect, what do you think is the underlying meaning of the use of that oxymoron? It is considered a false truth that a broken mirror means bad luck. A false truth. Now, what this means is that it is actually a myth, okay? It is a myth. It is a false truth. It is something that cannot be tangibly verified to be true or not. And hence, the fact that it is a myth. It is just a belief that may be true or it may be false because it has not been verified. Now, let us move on to example 5. Good night. Parting is such a sweet sorrow. Good night. Parting is such a sweet sorrow. Now, that is a quote from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, once more. And these words are actually spoken by Juliet. Okay? At some point, she has to part from Romeo because Romeo has to go. And so she says these words, good night. Parting is such a sweet sorrow. Now, in that quote, you can see sweet and sorrow are oxymorons because they are two words that are opposite in meaning and yet they are paired together. So what is the underlying effect? What is achieved through the use of that oxymoron? What is the underlying meaning? Good night. Parting is such sweet sorrow. So when parting is described as being sweet, but at the same time as being sorrowful, what does Juliet actually mean? She means that Romeo's departure is sad, but it is also sweet and pleasant because she anticipates to see him again. So although Romeo has to go, and it is quite sad, it is also sweet because she's already started looking forward to seeing him the next time, and that will be quite sweet. That will bring her a lot of happiness. Okay? Now, let us move on to the last example of an oxymoron, and that is prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. Prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. Now that is a line of, it is a line which you can find in the poem Funeral Blues by W.H. Auden. Okay, if you're interested, you can look up that poem. And this is a line that employs oxymoron in a very beautiful way, because we have the words juicy and bone. Now think about a bone. A bone has no flesh on it. It has dried up, and yet this bone is being described as being juicy. So prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. So if you want the dog to stop barking, then all you have to do is give it a bone. And that bone will be juicy. It should be a juicy bone. So although it's a bone, it is juicy because to a dog, a bone is delicious. It is delicious, and while the dog is actually eating the bone, it begins to salivate. So although to us human beings, a bone is something that we would not consider as being juicy, to a dog it's very juicy because it is something that a dog considers to be quite delicious. It's something that makes a bone begin to salivate, okay? So in that case then, it is a juicy bone. And if you want to stop the dog from barking, just give it the bone, okay? Now, this brings me to the end of this lesson. I hope you now know what an oxymoron is. I hope that you can identify some examples of oxymoron, not just in your day-to-day life, but also in your text analysis. And I also hope that you should be able now to use an oxymoron in your commentary writing. That if you're writing a text and you have to write a commentary about it, I hope you can now be able to do that effectively through explaining the underlying meaning in each oxymoron within the context of the text that you're analyzing, be it a poem, be it a novel, or any other piece of text. Now, if you found this lesson useful, please do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with your friends and family friends, or anybody else who may find the video useful. Remember, Sharing is caring. Now, see you in our next lesson on literary techniques. Look out for part 4. Bye-bye.